After 3 years with Joe Zushin, I worked like a servant, taking care of his son and tolerating his clingy ex-wife. The marriage certificate was delayed again and again. I thought I could finally settle things on New Year's Day, but unexpectedly, his ex-wife barged in, and I turned around to go on a blind date with Cheng Yubai, who had secretly liked me for years. However, Joe Zushin found me by tracking my location. But just when I decided to completely let go, I found out I was pregnant with his child. On the other end of the phone, there was a brief silence, then a light laugh that hid any emotion. Zhang Jianwei, it's true that I've had a crush on you for over a decade since high school, but right now, I have no interest in being the third wheel. Let's break up. I looked out the window at Joe Zushin speaking to Song Wanyi, his profile calm. Send me the address and time. I'll pick you up downstairs on New Year's Day, and we'll go straight to my place for dinner. My mom has been asking about you for years. His tone quickened, and he hung up immediately, as if afraid I would change my mind. The office door opened, and Joe Zushin walked in alone, wearing a reassuring apologetic smile. His gaze swept over my phone on the desk, trying to lighten the mood. Talking about me again with your best friend? I didn't respond, my eyes fixed on the dark stain on his left shoulder. The air conditioning in the office was strong, but the wet stain hadn't faded. Song Wanyi's tears, salty or bitter? Who knows? On the way home, Joe Zushin tried to speak several times, but each time, my sideways glance out the window blocked him. At home, the table was set with 4 dishes and a soup, all already cold. Joe Yu was locked in his room, throwing things, shouting, "I don't want to see you guys." I took the dishes to the kitchen and opened the microwave. 1 circle, 2 circles. On the 12th circle, Joe Zushin walked in. He was holding a small box and came close to me, his voice softening. "I brought you your favorite chestnut Mont Blanc. Want some? It'll make you feel better." The rich sweetness hit my nose. It was chestnut flavored. Song Wanyi's social media always showed the chestnut cakes from this store every autumn. I used to think coincidences were fate, but now they just made me feel nauseous. No thanks, it's too sweet. Joe Zushin sighed and rubbed his brow, faint dark circles under his eyes. Jianwei, don't ignore me. You know how Wanyi is. When she gets worked up, she doesn't care about anything. I'll send her away as soon as possible, okay? Wait till New Year's Day, and we'll get the certificate. This time for sure, nothing will stop us. We had once had a chance to get the certificate. 3 years ago, everything was set. But when Song Wanyi heard, she drove onto the highway and deliberately crashed into the guardrail. Joe Yu cried and called his dad to see his mom, while Joe Zushin held his phone, his eyes struggling as he looked at me. I always had a soft heart and couldn't stand seeing him in a dilemma, so I waved and let him go. Later, he rescheduled the wedding. When the ring was put on my finger, he choked up, saying he owed me a certificate. But after that, either Song Wanyi's depression relapsed and needed his company, or Joe Yu had school issues and needed him to run around. Every time the marriage certificate came up, there was always an unavoidable excuse. And 3 years passed. I shook my head, wanting to take this opportunity to clear things up. No need. I have an appointment that day. Dad, I'm starving. How long are you guys going to stay in the kitchen? Joe Yu's impatient shout came from the living room, followed by the sound of a game controller being thrown. Joe Zushin immediately picked up the heated food and called out, "Coming, coming." He hurriedly put the cake on the counter, pulled out my chair, and put a piece of pork rib in my bowl, asking, "You were saying you had an appointment?" I looked at the shiny piece of pork rib in my bowl and suddenly lost all appetite. Yueyang Road, I'm going to the new bookstore with my best friend. She's in a bad mood. Joe Zushin paused, his hand frozen, wanting to say something but ultimately just nodding. Good idea, to clear her mind. Joe Yu took a few bites of his meal, then slammed his chopsticks down. It tastes horrible. Too much soy sauce, it's too salty. I want the sweet and sour pork ribs Mom makes. He glared at me. You definitely did it on purpose. Joe Yu, apologize. Joe Zushin's face darkened. Joe Yu turned his head, neck stiff. I put down my chopsticks and calmly looked at him. It's fine. There's a home cooking tutorial video online with good reviews. You can search for it yourself next weekend when you're free. Joe Yu froze, as if not expecting me to not be like before, when I would shut myself in the kitchen the next day, trying to replicate the recipe of Song Wanyi's dishes until I could make them to his liking. I used to think that as long as I worked hard enough, I could erase the traces of the past. But when I started trying to become someone else's shadow, I had already lost my ground. Joe Zushin gently placed his hand on my hand. Is the work at the hospital too tiring? How about hiring a cooking lady? Don't work so hard. Before I could respond, his phone in his pocket buzzed. He silenced it, but it rang again. He silenced it again. By the 7th time, he finally answered in frustration. Song Wanyi. Are you done yet? I'm having dinner. I couldn't hear what was said on the other end, but Zhou Zushin's face darkened even more. He glanced at Zhou Yu, who was staring at him longingly. He hung up and walked back, his eyes filled with familiar fatigue and the, here we go again, resignation. Jianwei, Wanyi. She got drunk at a party and was dumped outside the clubhouse. Her phone and wallet were stolen. It's so late, and she's alone. She's a woman, not safe, not reassuring. I completed the thought in my mind. You can call a female colleague or a good female friend to pick her up. I heard my own voice, calm. Zhou Zushin's brows furrowed, and the guilt was replaced by impatience. At this hour, where am I supposed to find someone like that? She doesn't have many friends here. Jianwei, I know you'll be upset, but I can't just ignore her, can I? What if something happens? You know I'll be upset. Don't act like this, he said, his tone harder now. I'm just going to pick her up, settle her down, and then come back. Trust me this time, okay? Be good, finish eating, and go rest. I'll wash the dishes. He grabbed his car keys and jacket, hurriedly changed shoes. The door closed softly, but it echoed in my heart. I was left alone in the dining room, with a table of food barely touched. Zhou Yu had already slipped back to his room, slamming the door loudly. I looked at the suitcase in the corner, covered in dust. It was about time. My best friend switched shifts the next day to help me move. She pushed the suitcase into the trunk with all her strength, biting her lip. I've said it before, Zhou Zushin can't be relied on. Soft-hearted? That's for his ex-wife. For you, he's heartless. What are you even getting from him? To be his son's mom and get him to find another one? I kept my head down, staring at the worn shoelaces of my sneakers. What am I getting from him? Maybe it's just that when he appeared, he filled the huge void in my life. My parents divorced when I was 10, and both quickly remarried, having new children. I was kicked back and forth like a ball, and in the end, the court gave me to my father, who was better off financially, and his new wife put me in the room farthest from their bedroom. I ate alone, went to school alone, and lay alone at night, staring at the water stains on the ceiling. I learned to swallow all my needs because I knew no one would listen if I called out. After I started working as a surgeon, I calmly faced blood and gore but couldn't handle any warm relationships. Until that team building event, when I was coaxed into drinking, it was Zhou Zushin who stopped all the glasses. Doctor, Zhang has 2 surgeries tomorrow, so please go easy on her. Everyone, I'll drink for her. At the time, he was at the hospital negotiating a partnership for a psychological counseling institution, looking charming, and even his gestures while rescuing me had an undeniable protective air. My heart, which had been cold for so long, curled up at that small amount of warmth. So when he later confessed his past marriage and nervously confessed his feelings to me, I almost didn't hesitate. What did it matter that he had been divorced? The child needs a mother's love, and I can provide that. I'm confident I can do it well. But I forgot. Marriage involves 2 families, and when the mistress of another family is constantly haunting, this home can never be peaceful. What are you staring at? I'm asking you a question. My best friend poked my forehead irritably. I forced a smile. Maybe I just want you to care enough to yell at me like this. I'll treat you to a big meal next time. When I got home, Zhou Yu's door was tightly shut. I quietly cleared the dishes and prepared breakfast. Zhou Zushin returned only when the sky was beginning to brighten, his eyes bloodshot, a stubble on his chin, and his body reeked of smoke mixed with a faint scent of perfume. He wiped his face tiredly and forced a smile. Sorry, it's so late again. Wanyi, her investment failed, and she's in huge debt. The house was mortgaged. Last night, that group of people almost. Sigh. I didn't respond, quietly checking if everything of mine was packed up. And, he hesitated, studying my face. She has nowhere to go and is in bad shape. Our institution just happens to need a receptionist. The work is simple, and it'll give her a place to stay, in the employee dormitory. I promise, she won't disturb our lives. I forced a smile, feeling absurd. A receptionist? Zhou Zushin, your counseling center's receptionist is the first point of contact for clients. You want to let an emotionally unstable, debt-ridden ex-wife do it? Zhou Zushin's expression darkened, but his tone still tried to reason. Jianwei, don't be so harsh. Everyone has their tough times. She is still Xiao Yu's mother. I can't just watch her end up on the streets. Please understand, okay? Listen to me, don't get upset. We'll have a nice meal together on New Year's Day. Then, as if by magic, He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. Inside was a delicate clavicle chain. See how you've been rubbing your neck lately? Must be from all those surgeries. This massaging necklace can warm up. It should make you feel better. He always does this, using a little bit of post-fact tenderness to make up for all the earlier neglect, as if that could balance things out. I took a deep breath. Joe Zushin, we need to talk. He suddenly swayed a little, closed his eyes, and said, huh? What? Sorry, I'm a little dizzy. Didn't catch that. Nothing. The last spark of anger faded away. Go to sleep. There was no farewell. Not really. I stood on the balcony for a long time. Through the glass door, I could faintly hear Joe Zushin's muffled voice in the bedroom. Don't do anything crazy. We'll figure out the money. Where are you? Don't move. I'll be right there. He rushed out, disheveled, locking eyes with my calm gaze. The air froze for a few seconds. He awkwardly avoided my eyes, lowered his head to change his shoes. Wanyi, she's by the river. Said she doesn't want to live anymore. I have to go. Don't wait for me at lunch. Can't we call the police? Or contact her family? My voice was hoarse. He pressed his lips together, his jaw tense. Call the police? How would she live with that reputation? Her family has already abandoned her. Jianwei, even if she's wrong 1,000 times, she is still Xiao Yu's mother. That same irrefutable reason. I watched his figure disappear around the corner of the elevator. The door shut, and only the little cat keychain on the hallway hook gently swayed. It was the one he solemnly hung up when we moved into this home. Eyeing the little cat brought fortune, especially to the female head of the house. He said, this was our fortress. Now, the fortress had collapsed from within. On New Year's Day, Joe Zushin clearly put in the effort. He cancelled the restaurant reservation and cooked for us himself. His cooking was actually pretty good. The table was full of dishes, colorful and fragrant. He put my favorite steamed base and sweet rice balls in front of me. Joe Yu pouted. Dad, where's my cola chicken wings? Forgot. I'll make it up next time. Joe Zushin smiled and ladled me a bowl of soup. Jianwei, try this soup. It's been simmering for hours. If it had been before, this kind of careful attention would have warmed my heart. But at this moment, I only thought about eating less, to save room for the blind date later. Let's just call it a farewell dinner. Just as I picked up my chopsticks, the doorbell rang. It wasn't the crisp, ding-dong, but an insistent, angry, bang-bang, as if the door was being slammed. Joe Zushin frowned and went to open the door. Song Wanyi barged in. She was wearing a new burgundy dress, her makeup perfect, and holding an expensive pastry gift box. She scanned the dining room and curled her lips into a sneer. Wow, eating already? Looks like quite the spread. She walked in on her own and slammed the gift box on the table. Xiao Yu, look what mommy brought you. Your favorite handmade pastries with salted egg yolk filling. Joe Zushin's face darkened. Song Wanyi, how did you know the address? What are you here for? Song Wanyi's eyes immediately turned red, and her voice trembled. How did I know? Can't I just miss my son? Didn't you promise me? Every year on New Year's Day, you'd spend it with Xiao Yu. Have you forgotten about us now that you have a new woman? Don't you even want your son anymore? Xiao Yu, come with mommy. This family doesn't want us. Zhou Yu looked at his mother, then at his father, and finally ran to grab Song Wanyi's hand, whispering, Mom, don't go. Zhou Zushin sighed as he looked at his son's pitiful face. All right, since you're here, sit down and eat with us. Zhou Yu immediately perked up and dragged his chair next to Song Wanyi. Song Wanyi shot me a triumphant look and started serving Zhou Yu food. Zhou Zushin habitually picked the cilantro out of her dish. The three of us sat, laughing and chatting about Zhou Yu's school life, reminiscing about past New Year's celebrations. It was so cozy, no one asked if I minded. I put down my chopsticks, stood up. We're out of drinks. I'll go downstairs to buy some. Zhou Zushin instinctively stood up. I'll come with you. Dad, Zhou Yu stopped him. You promised to play with my new Lego. Zhou Zushin stopped, looked at me, then, be safe, come back early. I didn't reply, heading straight out the door and taking a taxi to the tea room as planned. At the window seat, Cheng Yubai was already there, gazing out the window. He was a little thinner than I remembered, with distinct features, carrying the weariness of years spent traveling. He turned his head and smiled slightly, pretty punctual. I thought I'd have to wait a bit. We exchanged a few pleasantries, and my phone in my bag lit up and turned off again, repeatedly. Cheng Yubai raised an eyebrow and nodded toward my bag. Not answering? I'm not some stranger. I took out my phone, over 20 missed calls, all from Zhou Zushin. I called back, and it was picked up almost immediately. Joe Zushin's voice sounded anxious. Jianwei, where are you? Does it take that long to buy drinks? I'm really worried about you. Yeah, I know you're worried. You? He let out a breath, his tone a mix of affectionate reproach. Are you doing this on purpose? Trying to make me anxious? A nosy neighbor saw you with a man at the tea room. I told them off. They're so idle. I stirred the clear tea in my cup, speaking softly. He wasn't wrong. I'm on a blind date. The other end of the phone went quiet immediately. After several seconds, Joe Zushin's voice finally came through. What did you say? Jianwei, that's not a funny joke. It's not a joke. The steam from the tea blurred my lashes. Trust me, I left it in the book you always read in the study. No marriage certificate. Not even a divorce agreement. On the other end of the line, I heard hurried footsteps, the rustling of pages, and then the sound of paper being ripped apart. Joe Zushin's breathing became rough, his voice hoarse. I don't agree. Zhang Jianwei, if you're unhappy, we can talk it out. I'll change. Tell me what I did wrong. Don't punish me like this. Where are you now? Send me your location. I'll come right over. Even now, he still thought I was just throwing a tantrum to get attention. Maybe before, it really was like that. I wanted to hear him say that I mattered more than anyone else, even if it was just to soothe me. But now, I didn't have the energy to argue anymore. I didn't respond and hung up the phone. Looking apologetically at Cheng Yubai. Sorry, I spoiled your mood. It's no big deal. Cheng Yubai waved his hand nonchalantly, handing me a tissue. Just wipe your tears first. I've never been able to stand seeing your red eyes. He fished out some lipstick from his pocket. Touch up. You look ghostly pale. I took it, my fingertips brushing his warm palm. It felt exactly the same as that hot summer afternoon 15 years ago, when he pressed a chilled orange soda against my flushed cheek. Back then, my parents were arguing loudly, and I huddled in the hallway, burying my face in my knees. He pulled me up, handing me the soda. What are you doing here, hatching eggs? Come on, I'll take you somewhere. Later, his family emigrated, and we lost contact. That faint feeling of affection withered before it even had a chance to bloom. Later on, my parents flew off in separate directions, and I completely lost the feeling of home. It wasn't until 6 months ago that he returned to the country, found my hospital, and leaned against the nurse's desk, smiling as he said, Dr. Zhang, registration, please. I recognized him, and declined his direct pursuit. At that time, I thought Joe Zushin and I would have a future together. Who would have guessed that the future would be so short? I touched up my makeup, and Cheng Yubai unceremoniously shoved me into his car, driving smoothly but quickly. What's the rush? I asked. What's the rush? He glanced at me, half serious, half playful, smiling. I finally got the chance. I'm afraid you'll back out and run off. The car stopped in front of a quiet villa. I felt a little awkward. I didn't prepare anything, already prepared. He got out of the car, pulled several delicate gift boxes from the trunk, and shoved them into my hands without giving me a chance to protest. Then, he wrapped his arm around my shoulder. Let's go home. Jianwei's here. Come in, come in. We've been waiting for you to eat. Cheng's mom greeted me with an apron on, taking the things from my hands. This child, coming and still bringing stuff. Go wash your hands and sit down to eat. Cheng's dad, a man of few words, sat at the head of the table, nodding at me, trying to soften his serious face. Make yourself at home. Don't be polite. Cheng Yubai sat me down, and during the meal, his witty remarks had his parents laughing heartily. The atmosphere was warm and pleasant. The warm light flowed through the room, and the delicious smell of food filled the air. I lowered my head, feeling my eyes burn. I quietly placed a piece of ribs he liked into his bowl, and in a voice only the two of us could hear, said, Thank you. After dinner, Cheng Yubai drove me back to the apartment I had temporarily rented. He stopped downstairs, one hand in his pocket. Go up, get some rest. No need to explain. He interrupted me, his gaze clear. Jianwei, we're just getting to know each other again. You don't have to feel pressured, the choice is always yours. I'm offering my sincerity, not forcing you to make a decision. I was a little surprised. I hadn't expected that the carefree young man I remembered would now have such clarity of mind. The words I had planned to reject him with suddenly wouldn't come out. Thank you. In the end, that was all I managed to say. He smiled, waved his hand, and turned back toward the car. At that moment, a harsh high beam suddenly flashed towards us, accompanied by the screech of brakes. A black SUV parked up ahead. Joe Zushin stepped out, his face dark and grim in the dim light. My heart skipped a beat, and then I remembered. After Joe Yu ran away last time, Joe Zushin had installed family tracking on our phones. He had said, "With two troublesome people, I need to keep an eye on you." It had been so long that I had forgotten about it. Joe Zushin strode toward me, his gaze fixed on my face, almost gritting his teeth as he spat out, "Aren't you going to introduce me to this person?" Chang Yubai stepped forward, half a step in front of me, but before he could speak, I had already moved to his side. "Chang Yubai, my friend. He just came back from a leave with the Doctors Without Borders organization." I paused. "We arranged to meet on New Year's Day." Chang Yubai calmly extended his hand, smiling with impeccable charm. "Mr. Joe, it's a pleasure to meet you." Joe Zushin didn't even look at the hand, grabbing my wrist and pulling me into the shadow behind the car. "Zhang Jianwei. New Year's Day. Is this how you treat me?" He lowered his voice and shouted, veins bulging on his forehead. "Spending so late with a man outside? What do you think you're doing?" The pain in my wrist was sharp as I struggled to break free, taking a step back. "Joe Zushin, I didn't ask you to find me. We're done." "Done? Just because of a piece of paper? We're done?" His eyes were bloodshot, his voice trembling. "Zhang Jianwei, where did I wrong you? How can you humiliate me like this?" "I didn't want to humiliate anyone. I just feel it's no longer necessary." The night wind made me feel cold, and I crossed my arms over my chest. "It's just that we didn't get married, so it's clean and simple. You can go back to spend a complete New Year's with Joe Yu and his mom." "Complete?" Joe Zushin seemed to have heard a joke, painfully pulling a wry smile. "Without you, what's complete?" "Zhang Jianwei, don't think you can just walk away from me." His eyes held anger, confusion, and a trace of barely perceptible panic. I sighed wearily. "Joe Zushin, I've been your partner for 3 years, playing the role of a housekeeper, tutor, and emotional mediator. Isn't that enough? I don't want to continue." Those words were as sharp as a knife. When I said them, it felt like a stab in my own chest. His face turned pale instantly, his lips trembling. "Being with me, it made you this miserable? Or have you never accepted Joe Yu from the beginning?" I shook my head. I never doubted that he had truly cared for me. I believed his love was real, but that love was too heavy, burdened with too much of the past, suffocating me. His scale had one side with me, and the other side weighed down by Zhou Yu and Song Wanyi, bound together, forever unbalanced. When Zhou Yu got into a fight, he could educate him privately, instead of letting Song Wanyi create trouble at my workplace under the pretense of caring for her son. When Song Wanyi got drunk, he could contact her old friends or call the police, instead of constantly leaving me to rush to her aid. At the New Year's family gathering, he could have told Song Wanyi that it wasn't appropriate, instead of silently allowing her to come in and take the role of the lady of the house. Too many things. So many that, even now, thinking back, my heart still hurts. It's not that it's painful, it's that I'm just tired. I heard my voice crack. "Joe Zushin, we're both tired. It's meaningless to keep pushing through." Joe Zushin remained silent for a long time, long enough that the sound of crickets in the roadside bushes felt unusually clear. When he spoke again, his voice was hoarse. "If you're tired, rest. I'll be here to rest with you. Jianwei, don't be so heartless. You know I can't live without you. Here's the thing, take some time to cool down. I have a small apartment near your hospital that's empty. You can stay there as long as you need. Whenever you want to come back, I'll pick you up. You can't be on your own outside." I can't stand it." I still shook my head, my attitude firm. "I don't need it. We're done." Joe Zushin seemed drained of all strength, his shoulders slumping. He gave a bitter smile and pointed at Cheng Yubai, not far away. "You won't turn back? Is it because of him?" I looked in the direction he pointed. Cheng Yubai was leaning against the car, looking down at his phone, his silhouette elongated by the streetlights. Even without him, it would be the same. I wanted to say that we should part amicably, but then a sharp pain suddenly struck my lower abdomen. I groaned and bent over, cold sweat soaking my back. "Jianwei?" Joe Zushin's face changed, and he rushed forward to support me. "What's wrong? Where do you feel unwell?" The pain came on so strong that I could barely speak, and my vision blurred. Cheng Yubai noticed something was wrong, rushed over, and swiftly picked me up, cradling me in his arms. "Mr. Joe, my last bit of respect for you was to give you space to talk. Now, you're trying to hold her back by making her sick? That's just low." "What are you talking about?" Joe Zushin yelled in anger. "How could I hurt her? Hurry, get in my car, I'll take her to the hospital." Cheng Yubai gave a cold laugh, avoiding his hand as he walked quickly toward his own car. "No need. My car's faster. Mr. Joe, please stay behind, or I can't guarantee what will happen next. He carefully placed me in the passenger seat, buckled me in, and stepped on the gas, speeding toward the nearest hospital. Through the rearview mirror, I saw Joe Zushin's car following closely behind. The lights in the emergency room were blinding. Before I was wheeled into the examination room, I thought groggily, could this be some terminal illness? The test results came back, but what I learned was more unsettling than any terminal illness. The doctor held the report, speaking in a serious tone. Pregnant, about 5 weeks along. How did this happen? The patient didn't feel anything? Emotional fluctuations this early, nearly fainting. This is dangerous. That sentence was like a bomb, silencing the entire emergency room. Joe Zushin was the first to react, frozen for a moment, then immense joy surged across his face. He carefully, almost reverently, touched my abdomen, then quickly pulled his hand back. Jianwei, we're going to have a baby? We really have our own child? Hope ignited in his eyes, as if this unexpected new life could fix everything. But I touched my belly, feeling no joy, only the absurdity and the weight of helplessness. We had waited so long. Due to my cold constitution, it wasn't easy to conceive, and I'd spent 3 years trying. We waited 3 years with no progress, but now, just as I was ready to leave, it came. Like a late, untimely joke. Cheng Yubai stood by, his figure hidden in the shadows, silent. Joe Zushin held my hand tightly, his palm burning. Jianwei, let's stop fighting, stop arguing, let's live well, okay? For the child, I swear, I'll never let Song Wanyi appear in front of you again. I promise. Let's start over, give the child a complete home, okay? There are things I haven't said, but I thought you knew. From the day I fell in love with you, you've been the most important person to me. No one can compare. He was rambling, desperately confessing. I just raised my eyes, asking quietly, what about Zhou Yu? Joe Zushin froze, his gaze flickering for a moment. Xiao Yu, he'll like having a little brother or sister. I'll talk to him. Take it slow, take it slow. I smiled coldly. How slow? A month? A year? Or should we wait until my child grows up and realizes that they'll always come second to another child, always having to understand and share their father? It won't be like that. Jianwei, trust me. I'll take care of it, he urgently promised. I didn't respond with trust or doubt, just wearily closed my eyes. White walls, white sheets, the cold, sharp smell of disinfectant in the air. My phone rang suddenly. It was Joe Zushin. He glanced at it, then turned it off. I'm here with you. He took my hand. No need. I pulled my hand away. You promised Zhou Yu that you'd attend the parent-child sports day tomorrow. Don't break your word. My location is on. You can find me. Joe Zushin hesitated for a moment, but eventually stood up. Then, I'll go back quickly. I'll make you some soup. He left the room, looking back 3 times. Once he was out of sight, I turned to Cheng Yubai, who had been quietly standing by the door. Do me a favor. Take me to the obstetrics and gynecology clinic. Cheng Yubai froze for a second, then stepped closer, his voice very low. Are you sure you don't want this child? I smiled bitterly and shook my head. In this world, my family ties are thin. No one desires a blood connection more than I do. But I also know clearly that Joe Zushin and I have reached the end. Leaving this child behind would only drag all 3 of us deeper into a mire. Joe Zushin can't truly choose between the 2 children, and my child may end up repeating the shadow of my childhood. The one who was never chosen, the one who was always left behind. The palm and the back of the hand are both flesh, but even flesh has thickness. I cannot, and should not, let my child gamble on that love, which might perhaps be fair. Lying on the operating table, the light of the surgical lamp pierced my closed eyes. Before the anesthesia took effect, I seemed to feel the faint heartbeat of the unborn life inside me. My heart ached like it was being sliced with a knife. But whenever I hesitated, 10-year-old Zhang Jianwei appeared in my mind, hiding in a cupboard, covering her ears, silently crying. She pleaded with me, don't keep it, don't repeat our tragedy. Halfway through the surgery, loud banging and shouting came from outside the door. Zhang Jianwei, come out. You can't do this. That's our child. I beg you to stop. What do you want me to do? Tell me. It was Joe Zushin. He probably hadn't gone far, or he turned back when he realized something was wrong. But it was too late. When the nurse helped me off the table, my legs still wobbly, the door to the operating room opened. Joe Zushin rushed in, the thermos he was holding clattering to the ground, the fragrant soup spilling everywhere, flowing in winding streams. He looked at my pale face and hollow eyes, as though his soul had been sucked out in an instant. He staggered toward me, his knees buckling, and he fell to his knees, his forehead resting against the hem of my hospital gown, his shoulders trembling violently, letting out muffled sobs. Zhang Jianwei, you're so cruel. We're done. Zhou Zishan, we're done. Cheng Yubai stepped forward, silently and firmly pulling him away, helping me back to my room. So, what's your plan? Cheng Yubai sat on the edge of my bed, asking gently. I forced a smile. I'm going back to my hometown. That was the plan all along. I don't deserve someone like you and your family, whether you deserve it or not. I decide. Cheng Yubai's tone was calm but firm. Zhang Jianwei, I haven't had feelings for anyone in so many years, not because you're so great, but because I'm stubborn. If you turn around, I'll be here. I felt a pang in my heart, but I didn't dare agree. Give me some time. Thank you, Cheng Yubai. He didn't press further, just let me rest and recover. I stayed in the hospital for a week, then rented a quiet apartment to rest for a bit. My best friend often came to visit, bringing news from the outside world. I heard Zhou Zishan and Song Wanyi had completely fallen out, and he had explicitly forbidden her from contacting Zhou Yu. Song Wanyi's debts piled up, and when she was cornered, she went to Zhou Zishan's psychological counseling center, causing a scene, accusing him of abandoning her and ruining her life. She even contacted the media, making a huge fuss. Zhou Zishan's career suffered a severe blow, and the reputation of his center plummeted. The court eventually ruled that Zhou Zishan would have custody of Zhou Yu, and Song Wanyi could only visit once a month, with a third party present. My friend sighed. You won't believe it, but in court, Zhou Yu suddenly said, "Can I have Zhang Ai as my mom?" It drove Song Wanyi mad, and she tried to hit him, but the court police had to stop her. I froze for a moment. That child, who always glared at me, said something like that. But it didn't matter anymore. After I recovered, I declined Cheng Yubai's offer to accompany me and went back to my hometown's county town. I became the school doctor at a special education school. Here, I took care of the wounded angels, listened to their garbled words, wiped away their uncontrollable drool. Their world is simple and direct. Love is an embrace, pain is crying. While giving them my modest care, I was also slowly filling the gaps in my heart with their clumsy dependence and smiles. Zhou Zishan visited twice with Zhou Yu. Through the school's iron gate, he looked at me and the children playing together. He left a large donation, then silently walked away. I didn't make a fuss, just used the money for the children's rehabilitation equipment and picture books. On a late autumn evening, the children gathered around me on the small playground, looking up at the sky. A little girl with Down syndrome pointed at a faint star in the night sky, struggling to say, "Teacher Zhang, when will that star be the brightest?" I looked in the direction of her finger. The starlight was faint but steady. I gently stroked her soft hair and smiled. It's okay. Look, even if it's not that bright, it's still there, shining. Stars are like that. People are like that. 2 years later, in the spring, the school's kapok trees bloomed. The trees were orange-red, so fiery it seemed like they would burn up into the sky. I was squatting by the flower bed, helping a boy with autism wipe the dirt off his face. He suddenly looked up, gently touching the faint scar on my wrist. The one left by Song Wanyi's nails years ago. "Teacher Zhang, does it hurt?" He spoke with difficulty, but his concern was evident. A soft spot inside me was touched. I shook my head. It doesn't hurt anymore. Behind me, familiar footsteps approached and stopped at a distance. Cheng Yubai stood in the warm spring light, the sleeves of his white shirt casually rolled up to his forearms, holding a thermos. "Dr. Cheng, here for free clinic work again?" Teacher Li joked from beside me. Over the past 2 years, whenever he had a break and returned home, he'd always stop by to check on the children's health and share a meal with me. "Yes, a free clinic." Cheng Yubai nodded kindly, walking up to me and handing me the thermos. My mom made lotus seed and lily soup, good for calming the heart and lungs. She insisted I bring it to you. He paused for a moment, then pulled out a small bunch of fresh irises, loosely tied together with a grass stem. "I saw them on the way, thought you might like them." I took them, my fingertips brushing his warm palm. Some things, like a spring breeze, silently seep into the dry land. We didn't talk about the past, and we rarely mentioned the future. In these slower moments, we listened to the children's songs, walked through the old streets of the county town, and shared stories of foreign starry skies over the phone at night, separated by time zones. He never rushed me, just stayed steady, letting me know there was always a warm corner that belonged to me. Last week, I received a postcard from Joe Yu, his handwriting much neater. Jong Ai, I got into the district's key middle school. Dad says thank you. And, sorry, I put the postcard in my drawer, feeling unusually calm. Some wounds, time doesn't make them disappear. It just lets them scab over, no longer affecting your running. In the evening, Cheng Yubai dropped me off at my dorm building. Next month, he suddenly spoke. My term in Africa will be over. The headquarters wants to transfer me to Switzerland for a good project. My heart tightened for a moment, then released. This is his path, wide and worthwhile. But he turned to look at me, his eyes bright with a boyish nervousness. That project allows family members to join. They say the snow in Switzerland and special education there are both great. The evening breeze brushed by, carrying the faint scent of kapok flowers. I looked at the small reflection of myself in his eyes and suddenly smiled. Sounds like, I heard my voice. A volunteer opportunity that really needs some thought. His eyes lit up, like they were filled with stars. The spring was just right, spreading across the mountains. This time, my spring. I finally held it firmly in my hands.